Hi, I'm Ross Addis, a Senior Solution Architect for Red Hat Sub-Saharan Africa. I cover the platform, as we call it, which is Red Hat Enterprise Linux to most of you. And today I'm going to be talking about the RHEL extended family and the Convert2rhel tool. I'll also be doing an in-place upgrade from RHEL 7 to RHEL 8, and then touch on live kernel patching. So, many of you are probably aware of this, but Red Hat is completely open source. Our entire development model is open source software. And this leads on to how we build the Red Hat Enterprise Linux family. So there are many projects out there, many of them Red Hat participates in, and we utilize those project components such as the Linux kernel, GNU utils, application servers, web servers, you name it. There's millions and millions of projects out there. We take the very best and we roll it into a distro called Fedora. So Fedora is intended to be the sort of lab of our Linux family. It's where we can develop new features, test out new things, and Fedora is available widely to everyone who wants to download a copy, but it's not exactly designed to be a stable platform for production. Okay. What we then do with Fedora is we take the best components of Fedora, we harden it, we secure it, we do software and hardware certifications. So, and then we release Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Being true to the open source movement, we then take the RHEL source code and make it freely available to whoever wants it, normally under the terms of the GPL. That source code normally gets rolled into, it gets recompiled, rebuilt into the CentOS Linux distribution. After that, as any good extended family is, we have those weird cousins that we don't talk to, and that sort of happens with the RHEL family. There are other organizations and groups and projects who take CentOS source code, or the RHEL source code, and recompile their own distributions. So they don't have anything to do directly with Red Hat. Their build processes are all their own. Whatever they do, we just supply the source code. So that results in a family of distributions which are compatible with one another. I mean, you can take a binary compiled in CentOS and run it on RHEL. It'll probably work. Of course, there's no RHEL signatures. It's not certified. We're not sure of any bugs that may have come in. You must remember that during the build process, there are bugs that get introduced. And so it doesn't carry any of the Red Hat or the RHEL certifications. It's merely compatible. Okay, so if you look at all these Linux distributions which have relations to one another, are compatible, sometimes people ask me, why bother buying Red Hat or RHEL if CentOS just works fine? Of course, that is the reason why people buy it. They're not necessarily buying the actual functionality of the operating systems, because they're fairly pretty much the same. When you purchase anything from Red Hat, any software, you are buying a subscription to our services. Okay, so it will, you get the update service. The upgrades are made available. We host them on platforms. We have security response teams. We have various types of support, multi-channel support, as they call it, web, dial-in, whatever. There's 24/7 available. So there'll always be someone waiting for a call if and whenever you need it. There's customer access labs, and another relatively new introduction is to our subscription is Red Hat Insights. Okay, so it's our proactive monitoring and remediation service. And pretty much no other Linux distro that I know of has anything like Red Hat Insights. I mean, it's a true health check of your RHEL systems. So, to get to the exciting command line action, I'm first going to be talking about Convert2rhel. So I'm starting off with a CentOS 7.8 release. It's fairly generic. It doesn't actually have any services running as such. It's a test bed environment. So this is best best case scenario. So I'll be taking that. I'll be talking a little bit about Convert2rhel. You can see some of it happening in the video. But please, if you do want to experiment with this, don't do it on production as your experiment. And there is extensive documentation available. In the Convert2rhel feature, we do recommend getting Red Hat services in, Red Hat Consulting, to give you the most seamless environment or seamless experience, especially if you've got a large number of systems that you may want to convert. Also, they have a lot of knowledge around the tool, so it is possible to do it yourself. I'm not saying it isn't, but Red Hat Consulting will give you the best experience, and you have the most assurance that it will be successful. So why would people use Convert2rhel? First of all, there's two distros that you can convert from, naturally CentOS and Oracle Linux, because they are part of that RHEL family. So what has happened in the past is people buy Red Hat subscriptions, and suddenly they would like their CentOS estate or their Oracle Linux estate to be covered by Red Hat support, and they want to use things like Insights. Sometimes they erroneously install something that actually requires RHEL. You must remember it's compatible, but it's not certified. And if they have issues with it, and I've seen this before, where the vendor that they bought it from says you need to be on RHEL, and they're working on CentOS, and they lose support of that third-party vendor because they're not on a certified platform. In those instances, you don't want to reinstall the whole machine and just load the application onto a fresh RHEL copy. You want to actually use that CentOS. There's a couple of technical reasons around it. Maybe you want to keep your SSL certificates. You've got very unique user configurations or application configurations, and you don't want to do a side-by-side migration. You want to do an in-place upgrade to RHEL. So that's where you use Convert2rhel. Don't worry about looking at following the command line too much. I'm just showing you for demonstration purposes. Read the documentation. There might be unique scenarios for you, but it's fairly simple to install. So let me get the correct. So what I'm doing here is basically adding a repository because CentOS doesn't have subscription manager. It can't access Red Hat content. So you need to add a repository of sorts. I'm adding an NFS repository here. You can have an HTTP or an FTP repository. And it will then make those RHEL binaries, or RPMs, should I say, available to that CentOS system for Convert2rhel to run. You can't use the subscription manager. So the Convert2rhel software, the script, comes from, it's actually hosted on the Fedora project, so you'd load that first and install with normal yum commands, add your repo, and then you'd run the Convert2rhel script. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but please keep in mind that it asks you 3 times if it wishes to continue. First, it checks the environment and gets some variables and starts understanding it. On the very last time, the 3rd time, it asks you for the answer yes or no to proceed. Once you go past that point and something goes wrong, if something goes wrong, you might end up with what we call a Franken-RHEL. So it's a bit of CentOS and a bit of RHEL. It might actually still work, but after that, the conversion would be quite difficult. The conversion script, as I found, doesn't like that scenario, and it won't run because it doesn't know whether it is CentOS or RHEL. And then you have to go through a manual fix of that. As you saw, it's relatively quick it's basically replacing a whole pile of packages, putting Red Hat logos back in there, having Red Hat signed content, as we call it, so the signatures for RHEL are there, and replacing the CentOS component. So after that, after a reboot, you should be able to log into the command line. As you can see, I'm using Cockpit to do this. And there we have Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.8. So once you've done that, you probably want to actually start using the Red Hat subscription. And the first two components of any RHEL box that you should be loading now, naturally you need to subscribe it and install Insights. If you don't know what Insights is and you've never seen it, this is the installation procedure. I've just loaded up a basic RHEL repository, and I'm installing Insights. You basically install it and you activate it. And then you can start in about 10 minutes getting a complete health check, or not complete health check, a good understanding of the health of that system, security-wise, system performance-wise, stability-wise. And if it needs any remediation, you can generate an Ansible playbook inside of Insights and remediate immediately. So start using your subscription. That's part of the RHEL process. And after that, you can log tickets, you can get support, your software will be certified, and you will start actually receiving value on that subscription. So very simple. Now the next part of that RHEL life is I'm going to take this, what was CentOS 7.8, and upgrade it to RHEL 8.2. This is using the Leap program or application that comes with RHEL. It's part of the repositories. It's a bit more advanced than Convert2rhel. It has a very nice Cockpit plugin to actually view the reports pre-upgrade. So very easy to use. Again, you run you need to enable it's on the extra RPMs for RHEL server. Once you've done that, you install Leap, and then you run a pre-upgrade. So what you'll see with this is we'll run the pre-upgrade and show you the report once this completes. And on the day I recorded this video of this demo, I was on CentOS 7.8, then it became RHEL 7.8. On that day, RHEL 7.9 was released, and suddenly I was out of, it would no longer upgrade because you have to be on the latest RHEL 7 available. Okay, obviously coming from CentOS, there was no CentOS 7.9. That's only going to come in a few weeks. But yeah, very easy to run. Run the pre-upgrade. It does take some time. It will output. And this is pre-upgrades, just generating the report. It won't harm the system in any way, and it'll show you what you need to fix before you can run a successful upgrade. It also tells you what you need to run after the upgrade to 8.2. So we then inspect the Leap report. You'd probably see on the command line there would be upgrade. There would be red text saying there was a problem, there's something that you need to address. And then if you've loaded the Cockpit repo, you can then look at the upgrade report, pre-upgrade report inside of Cockpit. It's quite nice to read, well, it's easy to read, and fix those problems, rerun the report again. If it's all good, goes well, and you're good to go, and you can upgrade. So as I noticed on this particular one, I was on the wrong version of RHEL, so I had to first upgrade to 7.9, which is not shown here. I don't want to kill you. This boredom. Okay, so once we've actually done the pre-upgrade, everything is fine, it's happy, then you can run the upgrade. It's very simple. You basically type leap upgrade, and it goes through quite a bit of screens. It's replacing quite a bit of operating system. It keeps things like your SSL certificates and your SSH keys intact. But obviously it's moving from RHEL 7 to 8, so now we have the base OS and the application stream in there, so it is changing it quite considerably. It is a full 8.2 when it comes out. And once it's successful, you see nice little bits of green on there, and you can then reboot. Okay. So it's now, as you can see, we're going to see it is now a full RHEL 8.2. Remember, this started out life as CentOS 7.8. And we should be able to see the Red Hat release. There we go. And we have a full 8.2, fully supported. It's still subscribed to Insights. And we can carry on with 8.2. Leap is a bit more advanced than Convert2rhel, so it's got a lot more checks in place, and you've got that pre-upgrade report, which Convert2rhel doesn't have. But very easy to use. Again, extensive documentation, and there's a lot of options that you can choose for your unique environment and situation. So we are still subscribed. We don't need to do any of that. But the last bit that I wanted to talk about, and talking about the RHEL extended family, some of those weird cousins talk about us badly, and there is this rumor that they spread that RHEL doesn't have live kernel patching. And in fact, we've had live kernel patching since, I think it was RHEL 7.4 or 7.5, and we've had it available in RHEL 8, and even up to now, going back to 7. We've now extended the support of those kernel patches. Okay, we've supported up for 24 months. We've made it available to all RHEL subscribers, not just premium. And it's very, very simple to use. I'll show you a bit of a demo. Now, keep in mind that live kernel patching is for unique situations. One where you can't reboot a machine for whatever the problem is. Maybe you have very long-running processes and you need to patch kernels. Maybe we've got security or something like that. You need to patch that kernel while the machine is running, while users are still logged in. But keep in mind, this is not a good method for patching kernels on an ongoing basis. This is not a permanent solution. This is a temporary fix for a unique situation. It's still good to reboot your machines. Check that all the configs have been written to machines, as part of your change control. Machines need to be tested for a reboot. If something catastrophic goes wrong, say UPS batteries explode, I've seen that, you need to make sure that you are able to get back your servers and your RHEL instances, as well as everything else in the data center, of course. But so use live kernel patches, but it's not a permanent solution. Very easy to install Kpatch and manage it. I'm just going to show you. This was on a different machine to my CentOS box, because that one was fully patched, so I didn't have anything to show, but this one's a little slightly older. So you'll see here, there's a kernel patch available, and we can apply it via the live kernel patch. Very easy to use. Basically use Yum for this. You need your kernel release number, which you can get through uname -r. You can then search for it. You can see, there we go, we've got a Kpatch for that. And you install the Kpatch. Very simple. This is easy stuff that everyone who's a RHEL system administrator knows. And then to update it, you can just run yum update. And that's basically it with running a live kernel. Don't use things like system tap or mod probe. because that will actually remove that live patch from that kernel. But that's all you need to keep in mind. Again, the documentation is extensive around this, and it's very useful. So that's basically what I wanted to show. Many people don't know about this. We spoke about our strange cousins in the RHEL family and why you'd want to maybe move to RHEL. So moving from a CentOS 7.8 to RHEL 8.2 seems to be magic, but it's not really very much magic. You just need to have the right tools in place. And again, please read the documentation before trying this in live production environments. Do a backup. Things can go wrong. And that's all I wanted to touch on today. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you very much.